It's Friday night in East Lansing. Gather around. Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Gather around, file in, find your seat, grab a beverage, get some refreshments. Let's talk some Michigan State sports, football, basketball, and recruiting for the next hour or so, maybe longer. Sometimes we go longer. I'm a little bit closer to being on time this week, so I'm sure some of you might be a little bit late getting here. Sorry that I've made it that way in the past, but closer to being on time this time. If you're new to the racket, what we do here is we take questions mailbag style. I've invited Michigan State fans over at SpartanMag.com, the underground bunker, to post questions over there. I field them here. We've got about 14 or 15 questions. In the meantime, feel free to post some questions live here in the chat area. I think it's over there. It'll be lining up over there. We'd like to hear from you. Any conversations that you guys take amongst yourselves, that's certainly condoned and encouraged. Glad to be here again to talk some Michigan State football, college football. It's the last weekend of May. Monday is going to be June. And when we get to June, that's when you turn the corner to start talking about college football. That's really the talking season for college football is when it begins, June, July. And for a lot of weeks, we weren't sure if there was going to be a college football season. I'm going to get those helmets out of there so you can't see what those are. It's too late now. Don't judge me by those helmets. I got a Pittsburgh one up there, an Oklahoma one, a Nebraska one. Nebraska one goes back a long ways. I'm not fans of those teams necessarily. I just like the classic look of some of those helmets. Every other SpartanMag.com, Spartan Mag Live, we've cropped those out to keep you guessing a little bit on those. Well, you caught me this time, and I apologize. Don't judge me on that. Or you know what? Go ahead and judge me. I guess I deserve it. Anyway, mostly we've got bowl game helmets. Outback Bowl, Capital One Bowl, Rose Bowl. That's what we usually go with. We've got a CFL helmet up there. Hamilton Tiger Cats. Hope the CFL doesn't become defunct. Anyway, football season, June. Back in April and most of May and March, we weren't sure if there would be a college football season. We still are not sure. A month ago, I would have agreed with Herb Street and Paul Feinbaum and those guys that said they didn't see how there could be a college football season. But now, just there's been little stair steps, incremental steps toward opening things back up for a college football season of some sort. I would say, and this is becoming a little bit more of a prevalent opinion, I'm guessing that college football will begin in some way, whether it be preseason camp or whatever, maybe even a game or two. What happens after a few players test positive, I'm not sure. By the time we get to September, there might be a different construct on what testing positive means, especially for someone that age. I don't know. I'm not judging, not making a political statement on it, but it sure looks a lot more likely now than it did a few weeks ago in April and in March. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited about it. And it's almost June. And I told you back in March when all this stuff happened, I said, man, guys, it's going to be Labor Day before you know it. And then it's going to be Thanksgiving before you know it. And when you get to be my age, those things go by fast. Well, I tell you what, the last 11 or 12 weeks, however long it's been, for me, 9 or 10 of the fastest weeks in my life. The Groundhog Day has something to do with it. Same thing every day. Been working a lot, having fun with that. Been spending a lot of time at SpartanMag.com, the Underground Bunker message board. It's been great over there. Appreciate everybody sticking with us at SpartanMag.com. And I don't know. It's gone by fast. I don't know if you guys would agree or not, but go ahead and throw some questions in there over there in the chat session. We're going to go to our first question right now. From the mailbag area at SpartanMag.com. This is a question that was posted at SpartanMag.com Underground Bunker. In the meantime, give us a thumbs up here at the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, to SpartanMag.com's YouTube channel. Helps us with the analytics, the algorithms. Helps put our little VCast, I guess it's not a VCast, it's a podcast of sorts, out to more Michigan State fans. We want more Michigan State fans involved. The VCast, those of you that are SpartanMag.com subscribers, you know what the VCast is. That's when Conan Dyke and I get together. We talk and yap a little bit. Usually it's after a game at Breslin Center on the court or at Spartan Stadium or on the road for football. Haven't seen him in a while due to quarantine. We had a VCast last night, the first one in weeks. It's over at SpartanMag.com right now for subscribers. Konendijk and I did it via Zoom, first time ever, and it was great. Appreciate Paul Konendijk and the work he's done with us. Appreciate Corey Robinson, the work he does as a recruiting writer. Rico Cooney, Rico Beard, the cast of thousands at SpartanMag.com. Justin Thind is a new one at SpartanMag.com. JT was his name. Subscribe. He was a poster over at Underground Bunker message board. And he's been a good writer at a few different outlets. Now he's aboard with us doing some good work. We look forward to bringing him along and having him becoming a bigger part of the SpartanMag.com community. First question from MSU Polo from Rockford, Michigan. He said, what is your latest percentage confidence level for any of the following committing to Michigan State? These are recruits he's talking about. Confidence meter. Jaden Akins, these are basketball recruits. Jaden Akins, Max Christie, Kobe Buffkin, Charles Bediako, Jeremy Sohan, James Graham, Imani Bates. What's my confidence meter that any of those players become Michigan State commitments? Jaden Akins 2 weeks ago, I would have had up around 70%. There was a lot of smoke, a lot of indications. Now it's kind of crept back a little more level. I would put Jaden Akins at about 58%. I suspect he'd be ready to pull the trigger quicker than others. Michigan State likes Jaden Akins a lot. They like Kobe Buffkin a lot. They'll be able to take one of those two, I think. So I'm going to put Kobe Buffkin at about 45%. And if Michigan State gets Aiken, then I think Buffkin drops. Michigan State likes Buffkin, nothing against him. I just think that Akins might be closer to making a decision. 58% Akins. Max Christie, 62%. I'm going to put it at 62%. And if they get Christie, then they would have room for only one of the other two, Akins or Buffkin. 62%. Does that surprise anybody? Excellent player, number 16 player in the country, 6'5", from Illinois, Michigan State and Duke recruiting him. Charles Bediako, the 6'10" center from Canada, plays prep school in Ohio. I'm going to put him at about 65%. They had Zoom meetings with Bediako 2 times in recent days. Michigan State, looking good for Bediako right now. You know, some of those things can change. Usually this time of year, those things can change significantly while coaches are on the road watching recruits, meeting with the cooks in the kitchen, finding out what's going on elsewhere. But that's not going on right now. It's all off campus. It's all Zoom. And indications I have are that, you know, things are looking good. Max Christie likes Michigan State. Michigan State loves him. Michigan State offered his younger brother a few days ago. That's my forecast on that one. Sohan and James Graham III, stretch fours. Michigan State offered both of them scholarships this week. And I think Michigan State's running strongly with either of them. They've got room for one of those two. I'm going to say there's a 64% chance that they get one of those two. I'm not sure which one it would be. It'd be the first one to make a decision. Not sure which one who would go first. Maybe Sohan, but I think solid chance to get one of those two. Imani Bates, I still haven't gotten that straightened out. We've talked about that a lot here on Spartan Mag Live and some of the other podcasts that we do. Haven't gotten it totally nailed down as to why. Last time I heard that Michigan State coaches were not as optimistic with him because of Untitled Beer Ranking Show. $5. Ring the bell. Thanks, man. I don't know if you guys can hear that bell or not. It's not really a bell. It's me hitting a lamp. I put a dent in it last week. Untitled Beer Ranking Show, thanks a lot. And I appreciate Untitled Beer Ranking Show, the post that you were putting over on the MUN board. I commented positively in support of what you were saying. But by the time I commented, one of our other moderators had already locked up the thread. I could have unlocked it, but I had to move on to other things. But I feel you on that for sure. Thanks for the tip. Appreciate that. We had some tips last week. What you see there is super chat. And if we have more conversations on the side in the chat area with people talking amongst themselves, or if Corey's here fielding questions. I'm not sure if Corey will be here or not. I hope so, but he's busy. I understand. Sometimes if we get so much chat going on over there, it's hard for me to go through and find the questions really quick. That's one way to definitely make sure that your question gets read. If you do that, I'm not asking for any, but tips here at the live tavern are certainly appreciated. I assume that the audio is doing well. I keep checking the light. When you see me do this, I'm making sure the green light is on. A couple of weeks ago, the green light was on and it wasn't working, and I was coming through the phone. So let me know if I'm coming through the phone or through this thing right here. It'll sound better if I'm right here. As far as baits goes, same thing I've said the last few weeks, and I was close to nailing down some more answers on that. Hayden Fisher, thanks a lot, man. I gotta find a new bell ringer here. Hayden, 10, big time. Appreciating that. Thanks. If I could pour a little bit more in your drink, I certainly would. By the way, let us know what you're drinking. Let us know your refreshment of choice for tonight. And tell us whether it's good or bad. Any recommendations you have. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. But baits, same thing as before. Because of the new G League rules, $500,000 floating around to guys to bypass college, and I know that Bates, if he reclassifies next year, and is a senior this coming season, not sure if he can do it or not, then he'd be 17 and too young to go to the G League. I've not gotten a straight answer on why he wouldn't be in that category. And if he is in that category, which all along seemed like it was going to be the reason Michigan State would be an option for him, then why did this change that? I've not gotten a good answer from the people who know on that yet. Still working on it. Almost had an answer this week. Made a call back. Wasn't able to hook up with that one. MSU Polo has another follow-up question. Where does the north branch of the Au Sable River fall on your rivers and streams power rankings? Rivers and streams power rankings. Gordon, did I just see $5 from you, my man? I might have missed it. If not, I'm just going to ring the bell. Thanks for being here, Gordon. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. If you're new to this, we've got a Great Lakes power rankings, and Lake Huron has been number one since September and still number one. And Lake Michigan's number two in my Great Lakes power rankings. I've got Lake Ontario number 3. I've got Lake Erie number 4, and I've got Lake Superior number 5. I love Lake Superior. Beautiful, powerful. You look at it, it looks deep. It's big sea water. My guy Longfellow. Working on your Longfellow. That's from what, Caddyshack? Or no, the other one with Dangerfield. Was it Longfellow or was it Hemingway that referred to Lake Superior as big sea water? And it is. You know that. It's a sea up there. And it's different than the other Great Lakes. I appreciate Superior for sure. But it came to my attention a few weeks ago that the reason that the water levels are high in Lake Michigan and Huron, dangerously high, destructively high, Lake St. Clair, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario, is because too much water is being let out of Lake Superior. I know it's not the lake's fault. It's not the lake's fault, but I think it's a human being fault. And I was going to post a link to that last time. Maybe I'll do it this time. There's a well-researched article that I've not double-checked in terms of the credibility. A well-researched article about those. It's from a Canadian source, and talking about Lake Superior being the reason for those problems with the lake levels. And if you're around the Great Lakes areas, you know what I'm talking about with the lake levels being a problem. So Lake Superior, for that reason, number 5. Sorry, Lake Superior. Shut off that spigot a little bit. You'll come up the power rankings. So MSU Polo is wondering where the Au Sable River is on my rivers and streams and power rankings. Au Sable River's number 1. Number 1 in the state of Michigan in my power rankings. I need to spend more time on the Pierre Marquette, maybe the Kedzie, to have a better idea. I'm not the best person to ask about those because I've not been far and wide enough. I got to put the Fox River in the UP up by Newberry up there because that's where my other guy, Can't find my other guy. Hemingway, he fished at the Fox River in the short story, The Big Two-Hearted River. He called it the Big Two-Hearted River. He named it that because it sounds better in the title of a short story, right? But the things he was writing about actually were things he did on the Fox River. And I fished the Fox River, just small brookies up there, but it's beautiful. Hemingway didn't want people to come to the Fox River because he wanted that to remain a quiet, his own secret. Big Two-Hearted River sounded better. Two-Hearted River is going to be on my top 5. Got to do some kayaking on that thing. Looks good. And that goes into Lake Superior. The Red Cedar River's got to be in there. Am I wrong? By the way, my other guy, Bedford, I think Bedford's a Michigan State grad. There he is. He wrote the book on fly fishing in the state of Michigan. There was a photo of him floating around a few years ago where he caught a steelhead like this right in front of Spartan Stadium. Looking at the trees, it was probably caught in March. Red Cedar River, one of these days, I'm going to turn my attention to that river in a lot of ways. Right now, busy with a lot of things, busy being a parent. Someday in the future, Red Cedar River, we're going to get some of you guys to help us with that river. It's a good one, and it can be even better. The Ausable River, it's number 1. He says, my wife's parents have a place on it near Lovells, Michigan, and my father-in-law is slowly teaching me how to fly fish. That's from Rockford, MSU Polo in Rockford. If you're from Rockford, you're probably fishing on the Rogue River. It's a good one, excellent one. I've not been on it. I've heard some other things about it. I'm not going to get into all of that, but the Ausable, Konendijk and I, all right, enough of this. It's going to be like show and tell. But anyway, my guy Schultz, over in Lovells, Michigan, on the Ausable, my guy Schultz, he's a magger. He's affiliated with the Riverview Lodge and Cabins. I still have my T-shirt when he had me and Konendijk there a couple years ago. Riverview Lodge and Cabins was awesome. Google it. It's great. And Schultz has been talking about wanting to get maggers together to have an outing there. And it's a wonderful lodge, and there's cabins. If we filled that place up, we'd sit around, maybe have one of these there, SpartanMag Live, then turn it off, pour a few drinks, tell a few lies, have a great time. That's in Lovells right there. We've been right there. So if your parents, what is it, your in-laws? Yeah, they've got a place on the Ausable in Lovells. Yeah, you owe it to yourself to learn how to fly fish. It's therapeutic. I just started like maybe 10 years ago, and you got to calm down. And once you learn some of the things, then you got to make a shot. Then it comes down to like shot making, because you might only have one shot at it. Otherwise, you'll spook them if you don't do it just right. I'm not any good at it. I'm not saying I'm great, but it's awesome, and I need to do more of it. Michael from enough of that. I'm sorry if you're bored, if everybody else is bored, but it's the way it is here sometimes. Michael from Manahawkin, New Jersey. He says, thanks for all your hard work during these crazy times. Thank you for being with us. What are your expectations for the Michigan State offensive line? There we go. College football talk. Real college football talk. We've been gingerly on thin ice the last few weeks. Not sure if we can talk about college football. It's June next week. We're talking college football. What are your expectations for the Michigan State offensive line this year? Do you think we have the pieces on the line to stay competitive against the top teams in the Big Ten if everyone stays healthy? Do you think sorry, I was reading some of the posts on the chat area over there. Do you think we have the pieces on the line to stay competitive against the top teams of the Big Ten? Top teams of the Big Ten, that means Ohio State. Stay competitive with Ohio State? That's going to be a tall task. It'll take more than the offensive line, of course. Will that area be good enough, functional enough, so that it's not the problem against Ohio State? Competitive if healthy, that's what you're asking? Yes. Competitive if healthy. I look at A.J. Arcuri. I thought he did some good things last year. He's capable of doing more. I would expect him going into his senior year to take it up another level and be better than functional. He was functional last year. I think he can be better than that. A lot of this depends on how well these guys are working at their homes right now in the offseason. At center, Matt Allen. Right guard, Kevin Jarvis. If he stays healthy, he can play good guard. If he's motivated, which I'm sure he is. I have no reason to believe that he's not. He, as you know, Kevin Jarvis, the last 2 seasons have been curtailed by injury, but he's got a high ceiling. What was he? Was he third team All Big Ten as a true freshman? He's had tough luck since then, but he can be a good guard, could be a good tackle. Jaden Reed at right tackle, solid. And at left guard, I'm guessing Duplain, J.D. Duplain, Luke Campbell, and Nick Samak there, I'm guessing. Matt Allen, I was watching a little bit of his Instagram takeover and some video of what he's doing in the weight room. And he has access to an excellent weight room in his house. And I think in the Naquan Jones Instagram takeover, I think he showed Matt Allen in there with him. They're from the same, they're both from Chicagoland. And I think they were in the same gym at some point. That was a few weeks ago. So I think Matt Allen, he's getting ready for his senior year, and he's fired up. And I don't think you'll have to worry about him not hitting the weights on his own as well as you can. He'll be filling it up in that area. So you've got Allen at center, Arcuri, yeah. A lot of those guys have been functional. I've said this in the past, have been functional already in their career. All 8 of those guys. 7 of those guys. So, Blake Buter, functional also. What are the chances you can get 5 better than functional guys playing together? I think a good chance. You'd have liked to have seen them if you're Chris Kapilovic, the new offensive line coach. You'd have liked to have had them in spring practice like everybody else in the country. But they've got experience there. They've got some mature bodies. So that's a good place to be starting. All right, so we'll go to question number 3 here from BG in East Lansing. He says, what would you perceive to be the likelihood that Dwan Mathis, the former quarterback from Oak Park High School, 2019, what is the likelihood that Dwan Mathis transfers out of Georgia due to the recent transfer news of JT Daniels? JT Daniels, quarterback from USC, transferring to Georgia now. I don't know if, by the way, with Daniels, I'm a little bit surprised in some ways. I mean, he transfers. Will he be able to play right away? I don't know. Maybe he wants to. Maybe he's got some reason. I don't know what his reason possibly could be. They'll probably try to do that. I don't know. I heard Mike Huguenin talking about this, and it made sense to me. I'm surprised at JT Daniels. If you're going to transfer, rather than sit out, why not go to play junior college for a year, then transfer somewhere, and then you can play right away? I guess the positive would be transfer to a big school, get training table, all the fancy bells and whistles. Live in Athens, Georgia, not a bad place. If you're a quarterback in the waiting, learn the system and be ready to take over in a couple of years. So I guess that answered my question. Chris Trainum, thanks a lot, man. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the tip. Appreciate it. Appreciate you being here week after week. Chris has been here a lot. Asked some good questions. Thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate it. So I guess I just answered my own question about Daniels and why he would want to transfer and sit out rather than go junior college. So I guess I talked myself out of it, and I disagree with Mike Huguenin now. Anyway, BG in East Lansing asks, seems like a large mobile quarterback. Dwan Mathis is what Mel Tucker and his staff have been offering in 2021 and 2022. Would you think Michigan State could be a potential suitor for Dwan Mathis's services, or would a transfer quarterback crush morale of the current quarterbacks on the roster? I don't think they're worried about the morale on the current quarterbacks. They're going to go get the best players they can. Tucker was interested in JT Daniels, reached out to him aggressively, got to know him a little bit when Georgia recruited Daniels out of high school, I think. So Tucker has shown that he'll go after a transfer candidate if it's the right type of transfer candidate. Would Dwan Mathis be the right type? I would imagine so. Would Dwan Mathis look to transfer? I have no reason to think that he would. I've not heard anything like that, but it's a good hypothesis. Dwan Mathis has had some serious health trouble. He's rebounding from what I understand. And from what I understand, he's very happy. He and his family are very happy with the way they've been treated and supported. Treated medically also at the University of Georgia. So Sounds like Mathis is very happy with that end of the spectrum. Now, he is somebody that was committed to Iowa State, changed his mind, committed to Michigan State, changed his mind, committed to Ohio State, changed his mind, signed with Georgia on signing day. So he's not afraid of walking through a door on something like that. So although all indications are that he's very happy with the way he's been treated at Georgia, might he look elsewhere? I could see that being the case, but I don't know if it would be immediately. I would expect him to stay, compete, and if the writing is on the wall at some point that he is not the man, then he can do a Justin Fields and leave at that point. Leaving right now, I doubt it. Question number 4 in the mailbag. We'll get to that in a second. Interesting what's going on with just a little bit of recruiting news. Brandon Buckner, the linebacker from Arizona, committed to Oregon earlier tonight. Michigan State was in on him. He's the nephew of Myron Bell, former Michigan State safety. And Myron Bell also played for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the National Football League. But Buckner, Michigan State had a good in on him. Didn't get him to visit this spring for obvious reasons. Won't visit in June for obvious reasons. Staying on the West Coast at Oregon. Oregon could certainly do some impressive things in the recruiting arena, especially for West Coast kids. Michigan State can do some things too, but Oregon with that one right now. Question number 4, MSU Spartan 777 from New Hudson, Michigan says, if you had to rank the top 3 of the following position groups for Michigan State in the upcoming season. That's an interesting question. Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receiver, tight ends, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, defensive backs, special teams. If you would rank those for Michigan State, what would be number 1 through 3 this upcoming season? How would I rank them? What are Michigan State's strongest position groups? Great question. That's a thinker. Anyone out there, you're certainly free to disagree with me or give your own rankings. Number 1, I'm going to put running back. Firstly, because Michigan State does not have, I hate to break it to you, but Michigan State does not have a lot of returning, proven, standout players. Deep End, my man. Thank you. Ring the bell. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate everything you're doing. Great to have you here again. Number 1, running backs. Elijah Collins, 900-plus yards. I think he's the number 2 returning running back in the Big Ten. I know I don't know how many yards Master Teague had for Ohio State last year. Master Teague's probably going to be the best running back in the Big Ten. He'll be fine. But Elijah Collins, a good one, a proven one. There's not a ton of proven talent elsewhere on the team. There's a smattering of it, but Michigan State has two players returning that earned all Big Ten mention last year. Elijah Collins and Antoine Simmons. That's it. So you're asking me to rank the position groups? I got to go with Elijah Collins. Yeah, Penn State does have a good guy coming back. Chris Trainum. Journey Brown and someone else too. But I don't know if they have more yards. I'm not sure who. I looked it up once and I've forgotten it, but Elijah Collins is number 2 in the Big Ten among returning running backs in terms of yardage returning. So I'm going to put running back number 1. Also, I liked what Anthony Williams did in the bowl game, and Brandon Wright's got some ability here and there. Showed it here and there. The Simmons kid coming in from Georgia. Don't want to put too much on a freshman, but just based on Collins right now, I'd go with running back number 1. I go linebacker number 2 for the reason I just mentioned. Antoine Simmons is the other one who has all Big Ten votes. You know what Antoine Simmons is. Pretty good player. Good one, not great. Good. Can he take it up to very good this year? I think so. His versatility is certainly makes him an even more valuable player. So I got linebacker because I've got Simmons there, and you've got Noah. Let's see, what does that say? Excuse me for a second. Anyway, Just got an alert on something. Anyway, you've got Noah Harvey. You've got Chase Klein, Just Lord Boateng. And, Shaq Brown is a defensive back. Could be into that slot area a lot if they go 4-2-5 against some opponents. But it's linebacker. I'm not saying linebacker's great. You've got a good one in Simmons. You've got Harvey, a proven one. Not great. Maybe Harvey can take it up a notch. The other linebacker, is it Boateng? Is it Klein? It's hard to say. Klein's done some decent things. You don't know who it is. I'm not saying it's a great linebacking crew. Michigan State's had better linebacking crews in other years. And Chris, I think Klein will be a linebacker. He could slide down and play some DPR defensive end. He put his hand in the dirt on third downs last year. Tressel still has a hand in that and evaluated him as such as a recruit and coached him last year as a linebacker. And he'll have a hand in some of those things. So, yeah, Klein could do that. But I think Klein, he's an inside linebacker. I think he's athletic enough to get by in the slot, but I think he's an inside linebacker. Anyway, I'm not saying, Boateng and Klein are still unproven, obviously. And behind them, Luke Fulton, maybe, but he's just getting started. A lot of other linebackers just getting started. A slew of unproven players. I remember writing the Spartan Magazine season previews in the past and saying that Michigan State's entire second-string linebacking crew could start for some Big Ten teams. I mean, good depth in other years. That's not the case this year. 2 good starters, question mark at the third, some other guys, some ifs and buts maybe there. Maybe they can be okay. What I'm getting at here is if that's the second best position group on the team, I think I'm not all that bullish right now on the cupboard of talent that Mel Tucker has inherited. When you look at running back group being number 1, linebacker group being number 2, in my opinion, you can disagree. I saw someone post that they'd have wide receiver number 3. I would probably put wide receiver also there. Offensive line, you can make an argument because there's so many players that have done some things, but collectively they've not been real good recently. Wide receiver Jalen Naylor in spurts has been good. Everybody knows that. You have Jaden Reed coming in. You've got Trey Mosley making a splash late in the season. You can make a case for wide receiver ranking high here, and I think wide receiver will be good and steady. You can make a case for wide receiver being number 2 or number 1. I'll put him number 3. It's probably too low. I could probably talk myself into putting them number 2 and moving running back down to number 3. I went running back and linebacker based on returning all Big Ten players. The ceiling of potential with Naylor and Jaden Reed is pretty high at wide receiver, so I understand that one. But, I've got that the way it is right now, but that can change by midseason. Any of this stuff could change, obviously. I mean, when you went into 2013, the Rose Bowl year, a favorite year to cite in terms of surprises. At that point going into the season, nobody knew Connor Cook was going to become Connor Cook. Nobody knew that Jeremy Langford was going to become Jeremy Langford. High NFL draft picks. Big Ten championship MVP type of players. We didn't know that. So, I think the rest of his question was, who's the best chance to be all Big Ten in the coming season? Again, Collins and Simmons. He's asking for the top 3. The third most likely to be all Big Ten, wide receivers tend to get more all Big Ten votes at various schools than anybody because they all have pretty stats and they all get votes, especially from media, but coaches also. So I'm thinking there'll be a wide receiver who gets all Big Ten votes for Michigan State. Would it be Jalen Naylor? If he stays healthy, he's got a good chance to do it. Jaden Reed was a big-time freshman at Western Michigan a couple years ago. Sat out last year as a transfer. You guys know that. He is really highly acclaimed by his teammates. Really. So I think Reed is going to be right there. I'm going to put Reed maybe just a little bit ahead of Naylor, maybe, as the third most likely to be all Big Ten. I'm heaping a lot of advanced credit there. Also, Jaden Reed was one of the players that Michigan State selected to do the Instagram takeover. Instagram takeover, if you're not familiar with it, over on Instagram, they have a player, sometimes a coach, just do like a day in the life of the player, like a little 3-minute video. Like, here's me eating breakfast. Here's me studying. Here's me, hanging out with my guys in the weight room. Here's me playing video games. It's just like a fun human interest type of thing. But some of the takeaways, the players that they've had do it: Rocky Lombardi, Naquan Jones, Matt Allen, I think Antoine Simmons, and Jaden Reed was one of them. So Jaden Reed, and Hayden is telling us that A.J.R. Curry today. I'll have to check that out. A guy that hasn't played it down yet, but for Michigan State's coaches to go ahead, Xavier Henderson did one also. These are respected players in the program. Xavier Henderson, Antoine Simmons. Now, Naquan Jones is still trying to break through into the starting lineup. Interesting choice there, but he's an interesting personality. So Jaden Reed was selected to do that. To me, that tells me that he's doing a lot of things right to gain the respect of his coaches, that Mel Tucker and his assistant coaches would be like, hey, let's let Jaden do it. He'll represent the program. And he did, represented it real well. But that's a good sign in terms of what Jaden Reed has done to impress the coaches. We know he's impressed his teammates, but the coaches also. Let's go over here to the chat area, take some questions over here. Let's see what we got. Got Carter checking in. Roll call. Hayden Vischer, cheers. Brad Fashenko checking in, ready to go. Carter 917. What are your predictions for Andrell Anthony and Jamari Button? I think Jamari Button's going to be a Spartan. What did he say? He said he's going to decide in July. I didn't get the exact date on that. I know there was some chatter about that. Excellent physical linebacker, can really turn the corner on the pass rush. Versatile guy. Belleville High School, one of the top 10 players in the state of Michigan. If Michigan State gets him, that would be the most noteworthy commitment thus far. Even more so than the kid from Venice, Florida. Even though he's a 4-star, and I really like that guy a lot too, Chuck. But making a comeback to get an in-state kid like Button would mean a lot. And I think, Michigan State, I think, is the favorite. And the fact that he feels ready to make a decision right now, and he's been presenting himself a little bit more Michigan State friendly all the time. He's ready to make a decision. That sounds positive to me if I'm Michigan State. So I think Michigan State gets Button. I think Michigan State's going to be right there for Andrell Anthony. He might be deciding a little later what kind of season Michigan State has in the fall. If we have a season, could have an impact on that. He's here locally in East Lansing, so he's going to. So whichever way the wind is blowing on the season, if you're a recruit living in Dayton or Akron, you might not get as much of the wind one way or the other. But when you live in East Lansing, if things are going good, that wind's going to be strong. If things are bad, it's going to be the other way. And if you're an East Lansing recruit, those things can affect you a little bit more. So how Michigan State does in the season will have an impact with Anthony. With Anthony right now, Penn State's in there, Michigan's in there. I give Michigan State as good a chance as anybody. As good a chance as anybody for him. Old Tug, the bell cow, is here. James Inman, audio sounds good, Jim. Thank you. Hayden respects the helmets. Thank you for saying that. Chris Fry, Tiger Cats. He was. And Chris Fry was injured last year, right? Out for the season with the Tiger Cats, my Tiger Cats. Hayden Vischer, what are your thoughts of Iowa having an extra home field advantage with the news today stating no restrictions on fans and the stadiums for the University of Iowa and Iowa State? Hey, if they can do it and everything is fine at that point, more power to them, a little bit more of an extra home field advantage. That is interesting. If some teams have a full home field advantage and some don't, will be interesting. Would that make other schools that are planning to do more with the social distancing and a reduced crowd, would they be more inclined to go ahead and bring more and more people in because Iowa's doing it? You would hope not, but everybody's human, everybody's competitive. I saw some things from Gene Smith, the athletic director at Ohio State. He says they're thinking, they've got a plan for 22,000 in the horseshoe. They've got another plan for 50,000 if restrictions are further loosened. Our guy, Justin Thind, our new freelancer at SpartanMag.com, got some really good quotes for us. And we'll be floating those out a little bit later about Michigan State and where they are on all this. Michigan State, as of right now, I can tell you that they are looking at plans. Everybody is planning for various eventualities, various scenarios. Michigan State is planning for an empty stadium scenario, and Michigan State, we have confirmed with Michigan State sources that Michigan State is also planning for a scenario with limited numbers in the stadium due to social distancing. So, and if that happens, they'd have a priority for some students, some donors, season ticket holders. We'll have that quote coming at SpartanMag.com soon, maybe tomorrow. But that's happening. Iowa is the first one I've heard saying, hey, we're opening them up and bringing them all in. That's their plan now. I respect that. I'm not going to sit here and say that's wrong. I'm not an expert on those things. But to me, that's another positive indication. Another positive indication as we stair-step toward hopefully having a football season. Hopefully it doesn't get derailed. I'm not going to make any, I don't know. Sounds good to me for now. Let's go back to the mailbag. Tony Goose from Parts Unknown. Okay, this is a good one. He says, what are your thoughts on Ian Rappaport's tweet? You may have seen this one. Ian Rappaport tweeted, no program treated scouts worse than Michigan State. This was in response to, was it Scott Aligio? I'm not sure. It was one of Michigan State's new support staff members announcing that Michigan State would be wide open to NFL scouts and Senior Bowl scouts. This is apparently good news for NFL people. Ian Rappaport, who's close with the NFL, says no program treated scouts worse than Michigan State. Ian would know. He's got good sources in the NFL. Tony Goose says, did this go beyond not allowing scouts to watch parts of practice that the media wasn't allowed to watch? And what do other programs do that Michigan State doesn't do for scouts? There's some programs that have an open door policy that allow everybody in. That's the way Michigan State's going to be now. Perlis was very much that way. George Perlis always talked about scouts would be in here. Come on in. You can watch anything you want. Perlis had a lot of ties in the NFL, wanted to treat those guys right, firstly. Secondly, he used it as a recruiting tool because I think at that time maybe Michigan wasn't as open to them. So that's something Michigan State tried to do that differentiated it. I'm not sure what other colleges are known to be good in this area. It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. As far as Michigan State goes, why did they shut out scouts? I don't know this for sure. I never asked D'Antonio about it, but I do know that D'Antonio was very paranoid and guarded and close to the vest about the threat and the reality of espionage scouting. There was some paranoia about some teams getting information. You guys remember the Big Ten championship game when Michigan State played Ohio State? Remember when Michigan State turned their benches backwards during the game? Why do you think they did that? A little paranoia about espionage. There's a lot of high school coaches coming through campus, coming to the clinics. After a while, a lot of people start knowing your terminology. I'm not just blaming Ohio State. There are a lot of programs that do that. I mean, that's why when you see a coach on the sidelines and he talks to another coach or he's talking to his quarterback, they'll do it like this. Why do you think they're doing it like that? It's not because they're trying to prevent themselves from catching a virus. Lip reading. Who's bringing in, glasses with a camera on them? So, I've not confirmed that with D'Antonio, but I always heard that that a lot of what they did to lock things down was because when you have scouts coming through, NFL scouts coming through your field, all those scouts are almost always have some affiliation with other programs. Maybe they played at a college. Maybe they've got friends at a college. Scouts, a lot of times, are trying to become coaches. So, hey, if I'd really like to become a coach for the Miami Hurricanes, I'm just using them as an example. And I know somebody that coaches for the Hurricanes, and I'm a scout right now for the Redskins. And, I've coached a little bit for Georgia, for Georgia Northern, fictitious school. And I'd like to get a job at Miami, but I'm coming to watch Michigan State because I'm an NFL scout. And I pick up a couple signals. These guys want jobs. What's to keep me from calling my friend in Miami and say, hey, by the way, if they do this and that, that's corner blitz, and whatever. And hey, remember me next time there's an opening with the Hurricanes. I'd love to coach there. What are the chances that can happen? What are the chances this happens? What are the chances that they put their benches backwards? That's why. So now, does Michigan State run that risk? Maybe they're not worried about it. Other schools aren't worried about it. But D'Antonio. He's a guarded guy. He's a principled guy. He's a firm guy in a lot of ways. Unbending. That was just one of his things. I never asked him specifically about it. Mark, if I'm wrong, if I'm misrepresenting you, and you see this, send me a text or send me a tweet. By the way, I did exchange tweet direct messages with D'Antonio once during the draft and he tweeted back because I asked him once Josiah Scott was drafted. I was like, Coach, hope you're doing all right. Hey, by any chance, could you tell me how many NFL defensive backs have you coached now? And I thought it might be kind of an enticing question to him. And he messaged me back and said he gave me the answer. He said he kind of lost track, but it was 60 or 70. And I put that in my story about Josiah Scott that day. Not that I got that from D'Antonio, but he was the person I asked because I didn't know the number. And I know that he has kept track of that number, but it's been so many now that maybe the number got away from him. But anyway, I'm not bothering D'Antonio anymore these days. Maybe someday I'll bother him. But I hope he's doing well. I think he was in Florida for a while. He still might be. Anyway, D'Antonio, if you see this, you know where to find me on Twitter. Message me and set me straight if I'm wrong about any of that. But I think I got the right idea on that. And I don't blame him. Did that ever hurt Michigan State recruiting-wise? Nah. Did it ever hurt them draft-wise? Maybe. I mean, I don't know how much NFL people stick together on something like that. But when I'm watching the draft, I forget the guy's name, but there was a linebacker, like an inside linebacker from Baylor, who was drafted late in the 7th round. And I'm looking at him, and then Joe Bocci didn't get drafted. I'm like, why is that guy better than Bocci? And the guy for Baylor, missed tackles. That was one of his problems. Not as big as Bocci. Looked like he was fast, but he missed half of his year with an injury. Joe Bocci with his situation, maybe that played into it. But if things are equal and whoever drafted the guy from Baylor, are they more inclined to take that kid from Baylor than the Michigan State kid because Baylor has open practices for scouts and Michigan State doesn't? Does that happen? I kind of doubt it because NFL organizations want to take the best players they can, period. Very competitive business, right? But I'm also a little bit surprised that a lot of those programs consider 6th and 7th round draft picks throwaways in some regards. I mean, I don't know. But can that hurt draft picks? Not sure. All right, Mile High from Golden, Colorado says, as always, Jim, thank you for all you do. Thank you. Mile High. Mile High asks a question every week. We appreciate it. He says, we Spartans are lucky to have you. You're too kind. Thank you. We're lucky to have you. Clay Johnson from Baylor. Thanks, Tony G. Clay Johnson. That was the linebacker that was selected in the 7th round ahead of Bocci. Similar type of players. Mile High says, the new 2021 basketball offers are interesting. They are. Michigan State with 2 new offers this week, Sohan and Graham, and Christie's younger brother. He says, the recruiting podcast left me thinking the staff is looking to take 5 players in 2021. Is this true? Seems the staff is expecting some attrition or maybe just Hauser and Henry likely being early draft entrants. Yeah, Henry, if he comes back this year, based on how much he's flirting with it this year, solid chance he leaves next year, to the point where they can plan that that's going to happen if he comes back this year. And I TikToked that one back to 50-50 right now because I had that one looking good. Then I've heard from some others, and it's true that he's getting strong advice from an influential person, but I don't know if he's going to listen to that person. He might do a Cody White instead. We hope not, don't we? But yeah, I think they're planning for Hauser to be gone. I'm sorry, for Henry to be gone. Hauser, could he do it? I've heard them talk about that as a possibility. I mean, Hauser's pretty good, but I mean, he averaged, 9, 10, 11 a game as, a freshman at Marquette. He's good, but to be going pro early, gosh, I don't know. I mean, he's going to be good, but, don't expect him to come in and be Kiki Vandeweghe right away. He's going to be good. But yeah, there's going to be some attrition. Recruiting 5 players basketball? No, 4. Pierre Brooks and then 3 more. A center, a power forward. Oh, wait a minute. What's my math? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be 5, wouldn't it? I'm not a math major. I wasn't. I was a journalism major and a history major. Anyway, that's 5, isn't it? So, yeah, that would be 5. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I have heard that they are expecting attrition. They almost have to recruit to it now. Would Sohan Graham, the power forward, be the last one in? Maybe. Meaning if they got Brooks, Christie, Akins, and Bediako, and then both of those guys were undecided, might they scale that one back and decide, now 4 is good enough? Possibly. But right now they're recruiting those guys like they're serious about it. That would be 5. You're right. And here's a question. I don't know if Mile High wrote this or not. I guess Mile High did write this question. Football. He says, which defensive tackles are on the recruiting radar beyond Payne? Payne, the defensive tackle, number 1 player in the state from Belleville. Which defensive tackles beyond him are on the radar? Any further insight on the Payne recruitment? Payne recruitment, still further down the road. Michigan State is in it, getting a foot in the door. The longer it goes, the better the chances are for Michigan State. Michigan State has a good season in the fall. That would help. It's going to be difficult to get him, but Michigan State's going to be going full blast to try to get him. Which defensive tackles are on the radar? Michigan State's got a commitment from Derrick Harmon, the defensive tackle from Detroit Loyola, 6'4", 325. He's a 3-star, ranked number 30, number 29 player in the state. We talked about him a few weeks ago in the Recruiting Rap podcast. He's a little bit of a project because he's a big dude, but so he's got to trim that down a little bit, I would say. But it's got power for a big guy, as you would expect, and good with the hands, well taught with the hands. So technically, Harmon's got a chance to be better than number 29 in the state. I don't argue with that ranking right now, but they've got him. I asked Corey Robinson a little bit about Derrick Harmon. By the way, had a Recruiting Rap podcast on Wednesday night with Corey Robinson. Go check it out if you're a SpartanMag.com subscriber. Thanks, Corey. Great job. Recruiting Rap podcast. That's our second one in 3 weeks, I think. Plan to be doing them on more of a regular basis. Also had the VCast with Konendijk. Need to get going with some Skull sessions also. And I'm going to give a verbal commitment that we will do another Spartan Mag Live on Monday night. Coming up this Monday night, Spartan Mag Live again. And then again on Friday. Monday, Friday, we'll wait and see. So stay tuned. Over the Underground Bunker message board, I'll tell you over there if we're going to be doing this again. But right now, planning on a Monday night. So write that one down on your calendar if you would, please. That, by the way, was my... that's something Mean Gene Okerlund used to say. Write that down on your calendar if you would, please. All right. So you got defensive tackles, Derrick Harmon. Tyson Watson, a commitment to Michigan State. He's a 5-tech defensive end. Warren Mott. I think that Watson could be a 3 technique. A Joel Heath, a high school defensive end with a good frame, could end up a 3 technique defensive tackle. So Harmon and Watson both could be defensive tackles. They're in on Payne. They would take him if they could. They've been recruiting a little bit pie in the sky here, but they've been in on Kevin Gilliam. And this is information from Corey Robinson. I asked him this question when I got this question over at the bunker. I sent it to Corey. Corey gave me some intel back. I would not have known this as much. Some of you may have your ear to the ground on this. Maybe I'd forgotten about it. But Kevin Gilliam is a 4-star recruit from Highland Springs, Virginia. 4-star, ranked number 104 in the country. 4-star defensive tackle, 6'4", 255. Ron Burton in on him. Michigan State a favorite? No, but they'll get in that recruiting chase. Take it to the end, see what happens. Corey also wants me to tell you that defensive end Terence Butler is also another one Michigan State's in on. 6'4", 225, weak side defensive end from Baltimore St. Francis, ranked the number 24 player in Maryland. Good questions there. A lot of good questions tonight. James Inman telling me that the sound is good. I already read that one. Going back over here to the chat area. Maybe it's below, depending on if you're on a phone or a laptop. If it's a laptop, I think it's over here. Doesn't matter. You know where it is. Mr. Bone Man says, what's up, comp? What's up, Mr. Bone Man? Chris Trainum, Mall 286, phoning in from South Philadelphia. Gordon Tanona, Spartan from South Georgia. The Untitled Beer Ranking show's here. MM Drippy is ready to go. Hayden Vischer's here. MM Drippy says we're going to do hour 30 today or 45 minutes. Right now we're at 56 minutes, probably an hour and 30 minutes. Hayden Vischer responding to my 60+% on Max Christie. Check it out. Ben Hess says, love the chat. Thanks, comp, from Roswell, Georgia. Thank you, Ben. Thanks again to the Untitled Beer Ranking show. And the tip from my man with the Untitled Beer Ranking show. Everybody go check out his Untitled Beer Ranking show here on YouTube. Check out his show. Click on his name. Go look at his beer ranking show. He says Fridays should have no time limit. If people want to talk, keep it going, comp. Thank you. No time limit. You guys remember those no time limit professional wrestling main events back in the National Wrestling? WWF, they used to always just say, this match has no time limit, back in the old days with Gorilla Monsoon and those guys. This match has no time limit, but WWF never took a match past 20 minutes. National Wrestling Alliance, they would. I saw Ronnie Garvin and Arn Anderson go for an hour at the Saginaw Civic Center back in about 1985. I'm not necessarily proud of that. Chris Trainum says, if MSU lands Akins, Brooks, Bediako, and Christie, where would that class stack up all time for Izzo classes? The Lucas Allen Summers was no joke, correct? That class was stupid good when it comes to program impact. The Marcus Taylor, Zach Randolph class was only 2 people, but it's be hard to ever get 2 players ranked as high as they were. But where would Akins, Brooks, Bediako, Christie, where would that rank? It would rank well, but Akins and Brooks are underrated. I think it could prove to be outstanding. But rankings-wise, there would be others that would probably rank higher. Like, remember like the Draymond Green class with Delvon Rowe? Was Corey Lucius the other one? That was a little bit underrated for a while, and it looked great when they were freshmen and sophomores, and then it is then Delvon was hurt a lot, and Corey Lucius went off the tracks a little bit, or a lot of bit. MM Drippy 100, you're welcome. I'm not sure what that means, but that's not a tip. That would be too much. But anyway, Drippy, glad you're here. Untitled Beer Ranking Show. Who scores the first touchdown wearing the green and white this fall? The answer to that question is Elijah Collins. Doors fan is here. Section 7 says, drink tonight is Red Breast, 12-year single pot Irish whiskey. All right. I'm in favor of it. Chris Trainham, the duder has a White Russian. Good for you. Section 7 says, Trainham, do you hate the Eagles too? That's you guys are talking amongst yourselves. Let's go back over here to the mailbag. Keep the questions coming if you want. We've got about maybe 30 minutes left. Let's see how quick we can get through this. Mull 286 chiming in from soon to be reopened Philadelphia. He's also over here in the chat area. Good to have you. Historically, what basketball player do you think made the worst college decision not coming to Michigan State? Anthony Roberson, Deshaun Sims, Cliff Alexander, or someone else? Boy, that's a good one. I would have to say Cliff Alexander of that group. I mean, he was the number 4 player in the country coming out of Chicago, big timer, liked Michigan State, gave Michigan State a little bit of a song and dance routine, all of a sudden visited Illinois out of nowhere, and then Kansas. And you know how Kansas, you know how they do. So Kansas got him, and wow, he had some problems in college, went to the NBA draft, undrafted. He's over in France now. But for a guy to be the number 4 player in the country, go pro early, not get drafted, it's close to being, I'd say, a sad story. Cliff Alexander, the type of guy that would have done well to get some Michigan State, Tom Izzo discipline and accountability. He would not be playing in France right now if he went to Michigan State. I say that confidently. So I think he made the worst college decision there. Anthony Roberson went to Florida, had a good career. His career got off to a really good start early on. Later on, kind of tapered off. I'm not sure he would have been much better at Michigan State. Might have been more beloved by a more of a basketball fan-friendly school. I know Florida has pretty good fans, and the Rowdy Reptiles are loud on TV and stuff like that. But I tell you what, I'll give you an example. When Michigan State was playing Florida in Tampa, when Michigan State upset number 2 seeded Florida when they had Roberson, that was 2003. Beat them handily. Very satisfying victory for Tom Izzo. Very satisfying for Tom Izzo in a lot of ways. Got to stick it to a lot of people with that victory, including Roberson and the Roberson people. Nothing against Roberson, but didn't choose Michigan State. Funny business, whatever. Anyway, at that game, Michigan State playing well, controlling the game, and a lot of Florida fans there, and they're getting kind of upset. And all of a sudden, everybody, you hear this buzz in the crowd. Oh, yeah, and everybody starts turning in the crowd. The basketball game's going on. It's like late in the first half. And everybody's looking and looking and looking and looking. And what had happened was Florida's quarterback had walked into the arena through the tunnel down at court level. I think it was Rex Grossman. Did Rex Grossman play at Florida? He just walked in and was watching the game, and all the Florida fans, I'll say it, all the stupid Florida basketball fans, stopped watching this second-round NCAA tournament basketball game with their number 2 seeded team in the process of getting embarrassed. All of a sudden now they're all looking, and they have these stupid, smiley, happy faces like little kids, like the ice cream truck is coming. It's the ice cream truck. It's Rex Grossman. I think it was Rex Grossman. Yeah, it was Grossman. Would Grossman have been the quarterback? I'm getting Hayden Visscher's chiming in. Would he have been the quarterback around 2002? So all these, idiot fans are enthralled because a quarterback walked in. I don't understand that way of thinking. I don't understand basketball fans. I know the football just means more in the SEC. Football just means more. Apparently basketball doesn't. That was not impressive. So Roberson went there and had a pretty good career. But my point is, if he'd come to Michigan State and had a good career and maybe helped Michigan State, he'd have been a point guard. And remember in 2003, In 04, in 03 and 04, Marcus Taylor went pro early, and Michigan State was caught without a point guard in 03 and 04 because Chris Hill had to play point in 03, and then halfway through the year they changed it to Alan Anderson, and then in 04, Hill tried it again, and later in the year they went back to Alan Anderson. Didn't have a point guard. That would have been Roberson in 03. Maybe 04. He was the same year as Paul Davis. So, yeah, he'd have been on that team in 04. When they didn't have a point guard, he would have been the guy. I suspect, depend with another tip. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. But they needed a point guard. They thought they were getting Roberson from the time he was in the 9th grade. Things went haywire. Ended up in Florida. Had a decent career. Not remembered there. Not revered there. There was a time there before they got Joakim Noah and Horford that Brad Vashenko with a question and a tip attached to it. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it, my man. I'll get to that one. Let's see, where are we? Let me finish my thought. You put a question on there. Thanks, Missy. I see that. Thanks a lot. Just got a text from our friend Missy. She's the one I was talking about. That's my wife's friend. That we're gonna go to. We're gonna go to Cape May. We're gonna go to South Jersey Shore. Check out that winery. She was there and witnessed the superpowers of my nose at the wine tasting in Niagara Falls last summer. The nose, it's a blessing and it's a curse, usually a curse. When I smell things I don't want to smell. Anyway, Roberson. If Roberson had been the point guard, 03 and 04 with Paul Davis, what could that team have been? He would be much more revered as a former Michigan State player today, which might mean more to him these days. Instead, he goes to Florida and somewhat forgotten. So I'm going to say it was a bad decision for Roberson also, but they had other stuff going on, so who knows. Deshaun Sims was never a great power player, never a great athletic player, a good college player, and Michigan State had a lot of reason to believe that he was coming to Michigan State, including, I heard from a very, 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 very good source that Deshaun Sims told Alan Anderson that, yes, you are famous, Missy, that Deshaun Sims, was committing to Michigan State. And then he committed to Michigan. He had a good career, good kid. I don't blame him for that. I think Jalen Rose had a hand in that a little bit. Whatever. Most things are fair in love and war and recruiting, now that the NCAA doesn't hand out any penalties. But the worst decision, Cliff Alexander. He's in France today. If he went to Michigan State, he'd be a better player today. And possibly more prepared for life after basketball. All right, Brad Vashenko. He's got a question here. I got to get right to it. He tagged it with a tip. Jim Nagy from Senior Bowl with positive comments toward Jaden Reed and A.J.R. Curry on the offensive line. This really opened my eyes. As you know, I've been very down on offensive line development. It's a good point. Offensive line collectively has not been good. You can see that. But individually, a lot of the offensive linemen have played well at certain points in their career, including A.J.R. Curry. A.J.R. Curry last year played for the first time. He'd been injured throughout his career prior to last year. And I told you right here that I liked him based on what he looked like in the green-white game. A lot of people that go to the green-white game, that, not the fans necessarily, but people think it's a bunch of nonsense. You know us at Spartan Magazine, SpartanMag.com. We treat the green-white game like it's the Super Bowl. And when they go to the second string players, third string players, that's the future starters, potentially. So we're watching those guys closely. Then we come home and watch it again on TV a few times. I'd been hearing some good things about A.J.R. Curry. I watched him closely in the green-white game, and I had him as a projected starter in my Athlon's Michigan State page for the Athlon's National Preview. And he turned out to be the starter. And we, the SpartanMag.com news organization, was the only one that forecasted A.J. Arcuri to be a starter. Well, us and Athlons, because I do a page for Athlons. Arcuri, you saw him, so then you saw him last year. Passes the eye test. Proportionally looks like a left tackle. Pass blocking was good. I thought his pass protection was good. And he went against some excellent ones. He wasn't perfect. I don't think any offensive tackle in the Big Ten is going to be perfect with the pass rushers in that conference last year. But he was solid. He's got to get better with his run blocking. And now that he's had one season under him, even though he was a fourth-year junior last year, that was his first season. He had to wait because he was injured in training camp. Didn't get on the field until, late September. Took him a while to learn it. First time out there, getting used to it. Getting used to the bullets flying, as they say. Arcuri, foundationally functional. Because of that eye test, physical, well-proportioned athleticism, lateral movement, he has a high ceiling, I think. I think he can go from adequate to good to maybe quite good this year. So I'm not completely surprised that Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl is impressed with Arcuri. Jordan Reed, Jordan Reed consistently graded out well by Pro Football Focus. I know Pro Football Focus, I don't always agree with all their rankings for various reasons, but they put a lot of work into it, and I respect the work that they do. And the army of people that they have cutting, grading film every week and how quickly they turn those things around. I think sometimes they give people a negative score when they, in my opinion, they weren't real clear on what the assignments were. They'll give someone a negative for getting beat in pass defense when, the guy's playing cloud cover 2 and he catches it down the sideline. That's not his responsibility anymore. And you'll see a corner get a negative on that. I'm like, you guys know more about football than I did, but you need to look at that play again. Anyway, Reed grades out well by Pro Football Focus. I don't, and I saw somebody on the Underground Bunker message board the other day, our message board, saying that Reed was always getting beat left and right by everybody. That's not true. He got beat a few times, and he'd get beat every other game in a pass rush. Every other week. Maybe not every week. But I just bumped the microphone, so let me know if I lost the signal there. But Reed, a lot of times, and it's my observation that there's some fans that can get cranky when Michigan State, when your team's quarterback gets sacked, and you're looking to see whose fault it is, and the replay might show that it was Jordan Reed on a play, or he might be at the scene of the crime and you blame him anyway. Or sometimes you might be real good, astute football aficionados, and you might rewind it and see, yeah, that was Reed's fault. And he did have some, but it wasn't like it was a continual problem. I thought that he was functional to solid in pass protection at right tackle. Did he get beat for some sacks? Yes, every offensive tackle does, pretty much. So when you notice it 3 or 4 times over the course of a season, especially if it comes at an expensive time, you're more apt to think negatively about that player. But you're not noticing the other times when he makes real good lateral movement to shut off good pass rushers over and over and over. You don't notice those, but that's happening. So Reed, that doesn't entirely surprise me either. I'm not sure Reed is a pro prospect, but is he a candidate to get an invitation to the Senior Bowl? And that's what Jim Nagy, that's what he's looking at now. That doesn't surprise me, that part. But point well taken from Brad's post that Brad has been, that he refers to himself as being a critic of the offensive line for good reason. Collectively, they've not been good. Individually, they've had their moments, including Arcuri and Reed. Now, can they take it up a level? Maybe. Could Reed be even better at guard? It's a good question. I kind of thought that might be a possibility last year when I heard and saw that Arcuri was really coming along, and we still thought Cole Chewins was in the picture. I thought you might see Arcuri and Chewins as tackles bumping Reed inside, but Chewins never played, and Reed stayed outside. Credit to Reed for being durable. He has played and started a lot of consecutive games while the rest of that offensive line They've all been injured. All of them. I got to get back on it. Spent too much time with that. Not that one, but these other ones. All right, question number 8. Spartoon89 from Marshall, Michigan says, next commitment for football, who is it and how soon? He's asking for my prediction. I'm going to say Javon Grigsby, the safety from Louisiana. How soon? I'm going to say within a month. Next commitment, and Corey Robinson with information on that. Thanks, Corey, on that one. Next commitment for basketball, and how soon? Next commitment. 3 weeks ago, I would have said Jaden Akins. Now, gun to my head, Max Christie. I'm not predicting it's going to happen, so get it straight, people. The question is, who is most likely to be the next commitment? If I had to pick one, I'm going to say Christie. And how soon? Not sure. Now, don't go on Twitter and say, Comparoni's predicting Christie's going to be a Spartan. No, I'm not predicting it. He asked me for a name for the one most likely. It'd be Christie. So be responsible with the information. Have some refreshments. Enjoy some dip. Handle it well. I don't want that one going haywire. The next question is, any talk of McAllister from Marshall, Michigan getting an offer as a slot receiver? I've not heard anything like that. Ward44 from Parts Unknown says, any idea when Tillman and Henry will make their draft decisions? You know, that keeps getting pushed back because the NBA draft keeps getting pushed back. When? You know, originally it was supposed to be by next Wednesday, June 3rd, right? Postponed indefinitely. I don't have a when on that, but I had an interesting source tell me recently that they think there's almost, they think there's, and I don't think this is good news, they think there might be a better chance Tillman comes back than Henry right now based on the reads they're getting. So I've TikToked Henry back to 50. I have to wait and see on that one. We all do. We don't know. But I don't know. Henry's doing a little Cody White right now a little bit. Needs to reel it back in my opinion. Question number 10 from Izzo's number 1 says he's posting from the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. Beautiful place. Beautiful place. Hayden Fisher says NBA is looking at starting July 31st, so draft is looking like it'll be September. If they do the draft in September, thanks for the information. Wow, what impact would that have on players still trying to decide what they're going to do for college? They just have to decide. They won't really have a deadline. They'll just have a deadline. It won't be an NBA deadline. It'll be a personal deadline as to, am I going to start working out with my teammates when they're back on campus? If athletes are back on campus at Michigan State in mid-June, that would get, first of all, that'd be great for basketball because right now those players are off campus and they don't all have access to great workout facilities, but they're practicing outside. Some guys are practicing outside. I was talking about this with Conendike yesterday. Back in the old days, that's how we did it. Those of us that were terrible players, and even the good ones too. It was an outdoor game. Rucker Park, the playgrounds, right? The coaches were saying that, they'd seen some things where I'm confused by what that one is from Katsumi. Masanari Katsumi. 3,100. What is that? Is that yen? I don't know, but let's ring the bell. Thanks a lot, man. Go Green from Tokyo. We're going to get to that one in a second. Wow. It's great. Thanks. It is yen. Thanks, Chris. All right. Yen. Masanari Katsumi. My man, thank you, from Tokyo. Tell us what time it is in Tokyo, by the way. I'll get your question in a minute. I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, the draft. So if they're, so players, they're talking, I was hearing that Michigan State coaches saw that Julius Marble is back in Texas. He's doing his workouts at an outdoor playground. Foster Lawyer is doing his workouts at a neighbor's driveway in Clarkston. There's a lot of good driveway hoops in Clarkston, by the way. 11 in the morning on Saturday in Tokyo. Nice. Stay safe there. Thanks for checking in. Really appreciate it. So September, if the draft is September, gosh, I could see a situation now where if players are allowed to come back to campus in mid-June at Michigan State, I think that'll be the case as long as the stay-at-home order is loosened in mid-June. No guarantee that's going to happen. But let's say the stay-at-home order is loosened and athletes are back on campus in mid-June, which will be the case at many other Big Ten schools and almost all Southern schools. If players are allowed back on campus in mid-June, they'll be working out at Breslin. They'll be playing. Xavier Tillman's going to be playing with them. And he still will not have made a decision. That'll be strange that he could practice that deep into the summer without having made a draft decision. Usually the draft is over by then. That's going to be an interesting dynamic. So when will they make their decisions? Boy, I don't know. All right. Masanari Katsumi says, go green from Tokyo. Always looking forward to catching this great show live. And this 31 roughly in USD. I don't know why, but YouTube only lets me pay in yen now. 31 is in honor of my favorite Spartan, Darquez Denard. All right. So Darquez, Quez, in Quez's name, ringing the bell. Darquez Denard, that's a good one. Still doing his thing. That's got to be the all-time great. Darquez has got to be the all-time. Who's D'Antonio's all-time best evaluation while he was at Michigan State? Darquez Denard, Trey Waynes, Le'Veon Bell, Kirk Cousins. Tell me what you think. Back to the mailbag. Izzo is number one. Says, posting for the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. Beautiful place. Can you give us any information you have learned from Coach Tucker and his coaches about the football program that we may not already know? Thanks, Jim. Great question. And I was thinking about this, and I didn't come up with anything. Sorry about that. Partly because we haven't had a ton of access to him or practices yet. I'm sure there's something, but I can't think of anything. I'm trying to think of some things with Georgia. There are some things with Georgia that I uncovered a couple weeks ago. Nothing major, but nothing. I was looking into some of the things they did X's and O's wise with Georgia and the mint front and things like that, but that's nothing too interesting. I got nothing right now. I'm going to move on, but I'm going to keep thinking about that. That's a great question. You stumped me on that one. Hayden in Grand Rapids says, regarding the Power 5 going over the NCAA's heads today to the federal government regarding name, image, and likeness. He said, what kind of changes do you see being done to the college football playoff if the Power 5s were to break off from the NCAA? At some point they're going to go to 8 teams, probably 6 and then 8. So I think that might happen with the NCAA anyway. But if the Power 5 breaks from the NCAA, the biggest change is not going to be in the college football playoff. It's going to be in what we know now as the NCAA tournament. It won't be called the NCAA tournament. It'll be called the tournament or the national tournament. And I would hate to see that happen, because then it would just be your 65 Power 5 major conference programs, pseudo-professional programs, just having a tournament amongst themselves, which is okay, but you will lose the charm of the early rounds of the current NCAA tournament, unless those conferences somehow find a way to say, hey, we'll still take in our tournament the champion of the MAC, the champion of the Mountain West, the champion of the American Sun Conference, Atlantic Sun Conference, the MEAC, the SWAC, the Patriot League. Would they still leave room for them? Probably not. So the specter of Maryland, Baltimore County upsetting number 1 seed Virginia, or Murray State upsetting South Carolina. I think it was Murray State that upset South Carolina. Or Loyola going to the Final Four, or George Mason, or VCU. All of that stuff is going to be gone if the Power 5 programs who call themselves, what do they call them? The Autonomous Five, if they break from the NCAA. And the reason this came up is because it was uncovered by a few national entities that those conference commissioners had sent a letter to the federal government asking them to look into the name, image, and likeness situation because they wanted them to do something about it and make a national reading on it and some national rulings rather than have all these other states, California, Michigan, and all these states coming out with their own laws and regulations. Michigan introduced one last week with Joe Tate, former Michigan State offensive lineman. So rather than all these states having different name and image and likeness rules and regulations, the NCAA passed it to the federal level and said, hey, just give us some national guidelines on this. They did that because they don't have any confidence that the NCAA is going to do it in a timely manner in the meantime. Secondly, they don't have any confidence that the NCAA is going to address all of what their concerns are. And over the years, there's been more and more of this, of the national major conference universities and conferences feeling that the NCAA gives too much lip service to the smaller schools, especially in basketball. There's 300 plus members in basketball. And some of the big power programs are like, why do they get all these votes? You know, we're the big dogs and there's only 60 of us, 40 really, in basketball, like the major programs. There's more, obviously, you know, Georgetown, you know, Villanova. There's plenty of basketball-only schools, but, you know, these big schools think highly of themselves. And they don't like that the head coach at St. Francis has a vote just as powerful as Roy Williams or Tom Izzo. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just saying that when they vote on things like when the recruiting calendar starts and ends and how long I as a coach have to be on the road because the coach for St. Francis voted for it when none of us big dogs wanted it, they get irritated by that. Do they also think that those places shouldn't get any of the money? I don't know about that. But one of the first times that it really became clear to me that something like this was possible was when we were in, I think we were in Florida, we were in Tampa. That was the year, the NCAA tournament, when Michigan State lost to UCLA in the first round. And that was also the time after Mark Hollis had fired hockey coach Rick Comley, and he hadn't hired a hockey coach yet. And we in the media, we were staying in the media hotel, and Hollis was cool about this. If the media were around at a hotel, he might show up at the hotel, you know, and if some of us were having drinks or something, he would sit down and have beers with us. It happened a couple of times. Might have happened more with other writers. I'm not sure. There was one time it was New Year's where we were in Florida when Hollis flat out invited all of us to go out, and we ate and just talked about some things. Meanwhile, we were watching Brian Kelly and Cincinnati play, I think, Florida in the Sugar Bowl on television. Anyway, so occasionally Hollis would sit down with us, which is like an old school 1970s type of thing. That used to happen a lot more back then with coaches and assistant and athletic directors. But one time, Hollis was sitting there with us, and we're talking about the hockey hiring and stuff, and we're talking about other things, and I can't remember what it was, and it was just he and I, and I'm not acting like I was a big confidant of his or anything, but We were talking about the NCAA. It might have had something to do with the agent problem. Michigan State had just had pro day the day before or something. I can't remember what was going on, but we were talking about the NCAA and this and that, and I can't remember the specifics, but he said something along the lines of, why do we need this? Why do we need that? Frankly, why do we need the NCAA? He said it like cold. Why do we need the NCAA? So, and this was off the record back then, whatever. Well, he didn't say it was off the record, but we were just talking and stuff. But these years later, now after that, it's clear. The cat's out of the bag. I'm sure he wasn't the only one that had that thought, and there have been coaches at Michigan State that have said that. Which, the NCAA has plenty of detractors and critics. They get a lot of things wrong in some ways. Maybe they do their best. I'm not sure, but I think, among other things, they've lacked teeth in punishing cheaters. There's no deterrent for cheating right now. Very little deterrent. They say Kansas is going to get in trouble. I'll believe it when I see it. So and it's looking, that step today was either a clear indication that the Autonomous Five wants to break away, or they're sending a signal to the NCAA, you do things our way. We dictate to you, not the other way around. I'm not sure what it means or where it's going, but you're asking what the ramifications would be on the college football playoff. I think the ramifications would be on the NCAA basketball tournament. And it would be sad if that happens. All right. A few more here from the mailbag. Here we go. All right. Sully from Parts Unknown says, come on, comp, spill the juice on Joel Ferguson. Now that Joel is supposedly won't be on the board past this fall. Spill the juice, he says. Joel Ferguson, Board of Trustees member, I think announced this week that he will not be running for re-election in the fall. I don't know if the Democratic Party was going to support him to be on the ticket. I'm not sure. Anyway, controversial figure, to say the least. Spill the juice. It's not like I'd spill the juice now that he's not going to be around. There's not a lot of juice there. There is, but I don't have much. There have been some things over the years, and I was thinking about it a couple hours ago while I was out there flipping hamburgers. I'm like, Joel Ferguson stories. Oh, you know what? I can't think of one, but here you go. I'm not going to tell that one for a long time. And I just remembered it, but that is a good one. I can't spill that juice. It's nothing bad. It was just me sticking my nose somewhere, and nothing bad happened, but it was around the time Mark D'Antonio was hired, but that's for later. Now, as far as D'Antonio goes, some of the juice I had heard from good sources, Joel Ferguson was highly involved with certain coaches. He was highly involved when Perlis was the coach, and he was a trustee, a powerful trustee, and Perlis always needed Ferguson's support on things to keep his job. And then after Ferguson, it was Saban, of course, and I think at that point, Ferguson might not have been a trustee. Then he returned as a trustee, I think, around the time when Bobby Williams was coach, and Ferguson was close in the football office a lot. I heard he even watched film in there with the coaches sometimes. And then John L. Smith was hired. Ferguson didn't like it. You remember that. Ferguson spouting off in the media saying that it was a bad hire. John L. Smith, his first press conference was like, "Where's Joel Ferguson? I want to fight him." Remember how John L. Smith was? So those two, I don't think that Joel finally said publicly he would support John L. Smith, but so Joel was not in the football office when John L. Smith was coach, obviously. So, but Joel always liked to be in there and be a part of it. He's a big football supporter. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. You can have your own opinions on that. So when D'Antonio was hired, I heard that Ferguson wanted to get back in the football office, and very early on, D'Antonio told him to take a walk. You're not coming in the office. D'Antonio, principled person, unbending. It's another example. So D'Antonio, 13 years later, we didn't hear much from Ferguson, right? Luana Simon takes over, and one of the things Luana did well was she had her thumb on all the board of trustees. Do not talk publicly. We're keeping closed ranks, and things in the university in a lot of ways went really well. Athletic department also. And you didn't have the public tug of wars that were so prevalent back in Perlis, DiBiagio, Ferguson days in the 80s. Luana Simon did a good job with that. So Ferguson, the way he used to do things, he was pro Perlis for a long time. And I remember the day back in like 94 when, that was the year when McPherson expected an outstanding season, and the season was kind of teetering and about ready to go downhill. Perlis was coaching to keep his job. They lost to Iowa, lost to somebody else. And we're at the press conference on Monday. Perlis speaks. He's done. Maybe a couple players. And Joel Ferguson walks in. He occasionally did that, not very often. He was hanging around. Some writers were around. Drew Sharp, Dave Dye, Jack Ebling, Steve Grinzel, some of those guys. The old guard. They're around. Ferguson's in, just kind of loitering around. And the writers just kind of go over there. Let's see what Joel has to say. Went over and talked to him. Joel gave some quotes, and in so many words basically said, I don't know if he said himself, but he said that, members of the board were, I don't remember the exact words, but the indication was that the board was swinging toward no longer supporting Perlis with a majority. And he was an important part of that majority. He was on it, and he could get other people to be with him on that majority. Ferguson kind of let it known at the press conference that, that's the way things were headed. And a lot of fans would agree with him on that. So then it goes in all the newspapers. There was no internet back then. So Perlis reads in the paper, and that's when Perlis, coming down the stretch at the end of his career, remember when he was talking about there's not a lot of loyalty these days. I tell you what, loyalty's it's a rare thing. Well, Ferguson was one of the guys he was talking about. He felt that Joel turned his back and he lost his loyalty. And there were donors also. And I don't need to tell you that there were a lot of people that thought it was time for a change. I'm not saying that that was right or wrong. I'm just saying that's how Ferguson would operate sometimes. He could show up at a press conference, the writers would talk to him, and he could mouthpiece that stuff and say what was going on. That's why he was quoted when John L. Smith was hired. People called up, let's see what Joel had to say. And he would say something a lot of times controversial. That's Joel. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. But anyway, a couple of months ago, just my observation, D'Antonio was starting to waver a little bit. Another 500 season. Just my observation. But around December, or maybe November, we're at basketball practice in the auxiliary gym. And who walks into practice? Joel Ferguson. He just kind of hangs around. After a basketball game, he came into the press room. He was just kind of available. I'm old enough to remember that that's how he used to do it back in the 80s. Those people I mentioned are no longer beat writers. If any of them still were, they would have walked up to him, and I suspect he would have talked, and he might have said something about D'Antonio and the job that he's doing, and just guessing. I didn't go up and talk to Ferguson, and I don't think anyone else recognized what Ferguson was doing. I might be wrong, but I feel like I recognized what Ferguson was doing. He showed up, and he might have been ready to say something. Now, remember, he had been stopped from going into the football office. Now, Joel, if you're watching this, you can call me up, tell me I'm wrong, or whatever. Again, I'm not casting judgment on anything, but he's been an interesting political figure in a lot of ways around here for a long time. That's some of the juice. The other one, Gonna hold on to it for a while. And no, I won't forget that one. I almost forgot it now and just brought it up, but the thing I'm remembering, I'll never forget. It's a good one. All right. And Beasley was a part of that too. DC Green from Northville, Michigan says, what's your thoughts on the new MUN board over at the Underground Bunker Message over at SpartanMag.com? Do you enjoy the discussion about other topics, or would you prefer it just wasn't there? I would prefer it wasn't there. I would prefer that we could talk other topics without it becoming so polarizing. Because when it becomes so polarizing, then you get some posters who all of a sudden have a negative viewpoint about other posters. I don't want members of SpartanMag.com to have negative opinions on others based on political views. If they have arguments based on who they think the quarterback should be or whether the head coach should be fired, that's good. That's what the message board is for. To the point where we had to kind of slow that down. But some of that stuff is so polarizing that it's just not healthy for any of us that people look at each other that way. So I wish it didn't exist. We started it that way. We've had an all topics message board in the past, and the politics, it just got to be too much. When the COVID-19 thing happened, and it was such a dominant topic for everybody on earth, that when that started, that's what people were talking about on the Underground Bunker in the first week of March, the second week of March. It took over the bunker. So then we made the decision, let's just move all coronavirus discussions over to the MUN board, which is usually a hockey board. And we put it there. And our moderators are doing a great job, a tireless job. I didn't spend much time over there initially, just wasn't my place. And then I've been over there a little bit more lately, here and there, once in a while. Some of you are on there a lot, and there's been a lot of problems over there, and that's not good. I don't like that. So we moved it over there. Our moderator's doing a great job. Ohio Spartan and Andy, great job. And what I've asked them to do, and what we've tried to do, is we don't want any posts on the MUN board that champion or criticize any elected official. So if you're on there saying somebody's great, no. If you're on there criticizing an elected official, no. Talking policies here and there, it's hard to keep that away. But it's been difficult, and I don't want censorship either. I don't want to just delete one side of the aisle. And I've gotten criticism from subscribers, concerned subscribers from the left, who tell us that we're obviously deleting too many left and allowing too much right. And I've gotten criticism from people from the right who tell me we obviously criticize and delete too much right and allow too much left. I've gotten it both ways. We don't want it to be that way. We want it to be to where we want both sides to feel they can both voice their side without it being too much animosity and too much election driven, if that makes sense. Probably an impossible undertaking, but those have been the ground rules we've tried to do. Now I'm going to get criticism from people that are going to say, come on, comp, I want to talk sports. I don't want to come to the Spartan Mag Live and hear about the coronavirus and politics. I agree, but we're 100 minutes in. That question took me down the road. Short answer, no. I don't want that to be what the MUN board is for, and hopefully there'll be a day soon when that is not a big topic of discussion. Last night, it was a big topic of the tragedy in Minneapolis, the murder. Yeah, that's what it is. That's a political statement. It was a murder. Gosh, too much real world stuff here. But yeah, that was on the MUN board, and yeah, I'd like for that to go back to being hockey soon. But right now, it's still a big topic of conversation for people. I'm hoping that we flatten the curve, and hoping it keeps flattened. People are saying there's going to be a spike in the future. Hopefully it's just a little one, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll go back to being hockey soon. So that's the plan long term, definitely. Two more questions. Last question here on the mailbag. This is from Macklin JB from Parts Unknown. I may be seeing things through green and white glasses, but I believe the entire season rides on the production of the offensive line, meaning if we can run the ball well, whoever the quarterback is will get easier looks and will keep our defense off the field as much as possible. With a strong to quite strong offensive line, I think Michigan State can win 8 regular season games. Do you agree? No. I mean, they can. They can. Offensive line is a key. 8 wins with that schedule. Looks difficult. But right now, I'm not sure what Michigan State's offense is going to look like, what the quarterback, who it's going to be. Not sure what the schedule is going to be. Are they going to play 12 games? We don't know how Michigan State's players have done in the offseason. We don't know how Wisconsin's players have done in the offseason. Minnesota's players have done in the offseason. Michigan State doesn't play Wisconsin, my bad. But more so than any year, it's going to be so hard to predict how good Minnesota is going to be, how good Northwestern is going to be. Hard to say. Offensive line is key. 8-4. That would be a terrific season. I'm not expecting it to go like that. All right, let's see. Let me go through. I've got about 7 minutes to try to quickly go through this. What do we have here? I got to find my place. All right. Hayden Vischer, no disrespect to anyone on the team, but is there anyone on the team who you worry isn't really getting after it and staying in shape? Yeah, it would be disrespectful. I'm hoping, I'm hoping Naquan Jones is really getting into shape now that he's going to be a starter. And since they used him on Instagram takeover, I think that's probably a good sign. Trenton Gillison needs to get in shape and really get after it. Matt Dotson needs to keep working on his strength as a blocker. Those are some. Jason Krulik says, question, Jim, is there any possibility that next season's basketball roster includes Tillman, Henry, and Mane? I guess that's possible. Is there scholarship room for all of that? If Mane becomes a Spartan, does Lawyer look to go elsewhere? I don't know. Is there a chance? Yeah, there's a chance. You can dream. And it wouldn't be a pipe dream. I always mess up with the scholarship numbers. You've got 1. Let's see. You had 3 seniors, 2. All right. What is this? I don't know. Yeah, Henry and Tillman, they're supposed to be part of it next year anyway. Money, I don't know. It's possible, though. Section 7. It's from the Big Lebowski. The dude drank White Russians and hated the band The Eagles. Yeah, he did hate the Eagles. And he liked Creedence. I just watched that about a month ago during lockdown. I'd never seen that movie before. Sorry to say. That was the funny part for that movie was John Goodman's character, how he kept yelling obscenities at the one dude. Every time he started to say something, it just kept getting funnier and funnier for me anyway. Every time, would you shut up? Every time he told that dude to shut up. Every time, just something that simple over and over was classic, I thought. Chris Trainham, great movie. Haven't seen that movie in a few years. Go see it again. Hayden Vischer says, Teague is hurt, I believe. Talking about Master Teague, I did not know that. Drippy, drinking some fresh spring water. Good for you, Drippy. Someone named Drippy should be drinking fresh spring water. Chris Trainham, doesn't Penn State. Okay, we went through that one. Journey Brown. Vischer says he would go wide receiver, running back, linebacker. That's fair in terms of the top 3 position groups. Trainham about Harvey. I was looking up something else when that happened. Chris Trainham says, will Klein play linebacker or DPR, defensive end? I already talked about that one. Sparty 2150 says, what's the biggest position of need now that we got a long snapper from Tampa, Florida? Sorry if that's already been asked. Long snapper is coming in for this fall. Biggest area of need? Talking about 2021 football recruiting. Tight end. I know they've got the one from Texas. Could use another one. Offensive tackles, right? Always need those. I don't know. Linebacker, they've got a few. It's like they need one more of everything right now for recruiting. Do we go after Oklahoma State transfer quarterback Costello? Old staff recruited him out of high school. I thought that was the Stanford kid. And where did he end up going? I don't know. I don't think so. The Stanford kid ended up somewhere in the South, right? And then the kid from Boston College ended up at Oregon, I think. And he may not even get a starting job. Mississippi State. Thanks, Hayden. Drippy, what do you got in that water? I don't know if this question is pertinent. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm all wet. I'm just not getting it. I'm going to move on. MM Drippy, football recruiting is slowing down a bit in terms of commitments. What does that mean? That means they couldn't go at the same pace in April. Otherwise, they would run out of scholarship slots. Right now, they may only have room for 18, 19, 20 players. I have a feeling there's going to be some attrition at some point. They'll have 25, but you can't keep recruiting like that in April, taking that many commitments, run out of scholarships. It had to be expected. A slowdown was inevitable. Rob South was tardy. It's another demerit for him. MSU fan number one, who will start at quarterback? I've said it a couple weeks ago. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'll go with Peyton Thorne. I don't know. You know, part of me is rooting for Rocky Lombardi. Supposed to be an objective reporter, right? I try, whatever. They're people. I'm a person. I like some people. I don't like other people. What are you going to do? Rocky Lombardi, I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for Peyton Thorne, too. But we've all kind of given up on Rocky Lombardi. Maybe that's not fair. Rooting for him. Good kid. Vischer says, don't count out Rocket entering his name in the draft next year. Excellent point. Carter 917 says, who do you think the highest rated football commitment will be this year? Wow. That's a thinker. I wonder what Corey would say about that. Corey Robinson. I'm going to look, hold on a second here. Highest rated commitment. Are they going to have a shot at Payne? I don't know. Donovan Edwards, a little more smoke toward Michigan now. Rayshawn Benny. They're going to have a shot with Benny. Rayshawn Benny's a top 100 recruit, number 86 in the country. Who's it going to be? If I had to pick somebody, I would say him. Highest ranked commitment this year. I'm not predicting that's going to happen, but they got a good shot at him, and he's ranked high. That's who I'd say. Terence Butler received some future casts to Maryland today. Thank you for the update on that. Matt McLeod says, hey, Comp from Chicago. Love the show. Thank you. Have you talked with Courtney Hawkins? How is he getting adjusted? I've not talked to him since his teleconference soon after he was hired. And if we run out of juice here, this thing might end abruptly. That means that we're out of juice on my phone because I've got the microphone plugged into this. It's not plugged into electricity. So that's the way we do it. If I had a splitter, I could do both. Maybe I'll get a splitter one of these days. Jesse Adams from Mount Pleasant says, I saw that A.J. Arcuri, Luke Campbell, Kevin Jarvis, all working out today on MSU Football Instagram. Out of these three, how many are starters this season? I have all three as starters. Jarvis is, Arcuri is, and if Campbell's working out hard, he could be tough to beat at left guard. He needs to stay healthy and stay on it. J.D. Duplain's going to be competing there also. So Campbell, Arcuri, and Jarvis were all working out together. That's interesting. Arcuri and Campbell are from the same part of Ohio. Jarvis is from Illinois. I don't know where they were working out, but that is interesting. I saw on some of the other Instagrams, I think Naquan Jones was working out with Matt Allen. And another one, Trenton Gillison, was working out with Xavier Henderson. They both went to the same high school, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, that is newsworthy that Jarvis is with those guys. Interesting. Jesse says, keep up the good work. Thank you. D-Pen says, appreciate the good work. Any chance we get a Zoom session with you, Rico, and Corey soon? Yeah, that's a possibility. I'd like to get Rico Beard in on these. I know that he was in favor of it. Get the Zoom going. Could happen. Hope Rico's doing well. I haven't seen him in a long time. Chris Trainham says, yeah, talking about 03. Yeah, Rossi Johnson didn't pan out. Al Anderson. All right. I'm speeding through these. I could talk longer on these. Plus 9/11 happened, so we got no Jarrett Jack, correct? Who will start at quarterback? Peyton Thorne. Section 7, Cape May is where the boot camp is for the Coast Guard. Both brothers went there. I did not know that. It's good to know that. It's a nice place, I'll bet. The pictures look nice. Jesse Adams. And I've got one more bottle of Cape May. Maybe next week I'll do it. It's another red blend. Jesse Adams says, if you want to watch a great college football documentary, you should watch the series Saturdays in the South about the history of the SEC on ESPN Plus app. I enjoyed it, but it shows a little glimpse of great college football. Yeah, I'd like to see that. ESPN doing a documentary on the SEC. How much did they talk about illegal recruiting in the SEC? Did that come up? Probably not. SEC, ESPN. Jesse Adams. Into why football means more to them down there, and you learn some pretty interesting facts and stories about each school. Talking about the documentary again. Why is it so big down there? No, sports are big down there. Now, why? There's regionalism is big down there. It's bigger in the Southeast than any other part of the country. Regionalism. They're very proud to be Southern. Nothing wrong with that. Why are they so proud to be Southern? My theory is, and nothing against it, my parents were Southern. I have a lot of great relatives that are Southern. But why the rest of the region, why are they so SEC? Why are they more regional than any other region in the country? Appomattox Courthouse. Was it courthouse or was it, what kind of house was it? Appomattox. That's my theory. Hayden Vischer. NBA is looking at starting. Okay, we've been through that. Again, thanks to Katsumi. What just happened? Yes, can. Talking about meant to be 31. I'm not sure how much that was, Mr. Katsumi, but I really appreciate it. What do we have here? Is that 28? That is a great tip. That's $28 or $31. Thank you very much, Mr. Katsumi. Thank you. Appreciate it. Helps the entire cause here. The entire cause. Put that toward the travel budget in the fall. Hope there is a travel budget. Hope I'm buying a flight to Provo, Utah soon. What do we have here? Bell was talking about Le'Veon Bell. Conklin doesn't count. Probably right. When we were talking earlier about D'Antonio's best. You guys talked about that on your own. I'm going to have to zip through this. 28-ish. Thank you again. Appreciate that. Oh, we got 10% more. But thanks again. So it was $28 in yen. I'll take it. We'll take it. SpartanMag will take it. Travel budget. Really appreciate it. I can back up here a little bit and take a little bit more on some of these. Now that I know I've got 10% of time left. Le'Veon Bell was a 2-star fullback out of Reynoldsburg. I remember when we lost out on James White. I had friends calling me about Bell committing, and I had no idea who he was. Chris Trainum says that. So, talking about Le'Veon Bell, earlier in the podcast, we were talking about who was D'Antonio's best evaluation as a recruit. Le'Veon Bell, Kirk Cousins, Darqueze Dennard. Hayden Vischer says, would the NCAA even allow them to play in that? Talking about what could happen with a potential breakup with the Power 5 and the NCAA. Section 7, Mercer over Duke. Exactly. Or did Lehigh beat Duke also? Yeah, that type of stuff would be gone if the smaller schools are no longer in the NCAA tournament. VCU beat Duke also. Was it Lehigh that beat Duke? I think so. Carter 917. Who were the main candidates besides D'Antonio when he was hired? I think you mean hired, when D'Antonio was hired. Other than D'Antonio, Todd Grantham interviewed and at one point was erroneously reported by a TV station in Cleveland as having gotten the job. Brian Kelly, the coach was he at Central Michigan at the time? Yes. He was interviewed. Brian Kelly was. I can't remember if Ron English was interviewed or not. He was at Eastern Michigan, had just started at Eastern Michigan, had a successful run as defensive coordinator at Michigan. Was anyone else in there? Brian Kelly, Todd Grantham were some of the main ones. Todd Grantham never got a head coaching job. That would have been his closest shot. Ben Shai says, is there a player that has underperformed for D'Antonio that will break out under Tucker? The guy with the best chance to do that is Dominique Long. I think he's going to get a look to start at corner. He'll have to sink or swim. Good frame, good speed. Has to show he can do it. Mike Marzalek says, am I the only one that thinks Budden's recruiting posturing is not our kind of guy? Reminds me of Dream Team antics. Mike Marzalek is also Tiger Packer on Underground Bunker message board. Great to hear from you, Tiger Packer. The posturing, you raise a good point, good question. I wouldn't go that far, but not an outlandish observation. I'm not going to say you're wrong. Michael Kent says Bo Pelini. Thank you. Bo Pelini was interviewed. I think Luana Simon was in the Bo Pelini camp. Liked Bo Pelini. Joel Ferguson was in the Charlie Baggett camp. So those guys were also in the hunt in some regards. Hayden Fisher with a good point, saying you don't necessarily know what this staff's our kind of guy is. True also. And it's a little different from the D'Antonio. A lot of things are different than the D'Antonio era. D'Antonio had a great run. Nothing disparaging about him at all from me. That's going to wrap it up. We went 2 hours again. Appreciate all the posts over the bunker, the posts in the chat. Appreciate the tips this week. Always appreciate those. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks, Maggers. We're going to see you on Monday. Monday, the next Spartan Mag Live. Maybe a shortened version, a condensed version, maybe just a quick hour. We'll get some more questions, and I'll think a little bit more about that Mel Tucker question, about things about him that we don't know yet, or that you might not know. I'll give that some more thought. Appreciate everybody chiming in. Everybody take care. Have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Spartan Mag Live.